We are going to move on and bring on from Field Law, Danielle Bourgeois, who's going to take us through the process of working with foreclosures, because that's obviously something that is on the top of everybody's mind while these deferrals are coming due. So Danielle, I see you, so welcome.
Thank you very much, Devin. So I have a couple of things to go over today. I want to kind of give a general process overview about foreclosures, but then I also want to touch on what's important to you guys, which is basically the opportunities to see foreclosure homes and to participate in the process. So very briefly, I think James probably hit the nail on the head. There are a lot of court delays right now, so things are taking longer. A lot of lenders put a moratorium over enforcing default measures on mortgages. From my experience, those have all been lifted now. So there is a backlog, and we're working with the courts to try and free up some of that backlog right now. So essentially, with a foreclosure, there's a demand usually by the lender to the mortgagor. Pleadings are filed. And then the first step is an appraisal is done on the property, and then there's a first application. Now, based upon this first application, it determines how quickly the foreclosure actually happens. So if there's a lot of equity in the property, the foreclosure process is going to take a lot longer because the court gives an opportunity for mortgagors to redeem their mortgage or get alternate financing. And so the properties that you guys would likely be looking at would be in situations where people don't have the equity in the property, they don't have the means to pay up arrears. It might be a matured mortgage, their employment circumstance could have changed, and so they're not able to get alternate financing. And so at that phase, an application is made by the lender to basically list the properties. Now, there's three usual methods by which this is done. So with properties where there's less equity, it's either done by a judicial posting at the courthouse or a Kijiji listing. Now, obviously with COVID and even pre-COVID, judicial postings were used less and less because it's basically a bulletin board where it's posted for 5 days and then it comes back to court and, oh, hey, we didn't get any offers. And that's not really surprising because some realtors might go and look at these postings, but it doesn't get a lot of exposure. And so Kijiji listings kind of became the next sort of favorite for a short-term listing. Now those listings are pretty generic, and I think they're pretty easy to pick out on Kijiji because it's a fairly generic court-like generic listing, not a lot of specifics about the property, not a list price. And so that's one thing you can look out for. The other way is through a judicial listing. And so that's actually through a realtor with a set list price. And it's usually listed for about a period of 90 days at an appraised fair market value. And so in touching on the judicial listing portion, if you do have connections to a realtor and they know the foreclosure listings that are out there, things to consider are things like, what is the affidavit of value price? What is the appraisal price? Because offers that are brought before the court are usually, I'm going to say, within 20% of the market value price if they're looking for a buyer, particularly in situations where there is some equity in the property. They're going to be looking to get something close to the value because the margins are probably fairly slim at that point. And so you're going to want to look at the affidavit of value price. You can get that probably by contacting the paralegal that's running the file. That's usually your best source of information. Another thing you can do is have your realtor do a CMA on the property. Those are fairly close usually to the appraisal price. But it's very important you do a viewing because all judicial listing properties are bought as is. And so what you see is what you get. You can try and get an inspection in there, but honestly, unconditional sales are what get put before the court. And so you have that opportunity to view. And then basically at that point, you're putting in an offer. So in terms of submitting an offer, as I mentioned, it's going to be an unconditional offer as is. And a lot of times there are competing offers because there's other people doing this exact same thing. You can ask through your realtor or through the paralegal, you can ask what other people are bidding. They may or may not tell you. And so you may find yourself in a situation that James was alluding to earlier, which is essentially waiting for a court application to determine whether or not one of the offers is going to be approved. Now, oftentimes you put in your offer, it goes into the court, and then you're going to want to show up on the date of the application. Now, the beauty of court these days is that you can show up on WebEx. You can show up over the phone. And so you're not physically having to go to the court. And once you're there, you can say, well, actually, I'll offer more than this person. Or you have another opportunity to try and save the sale if it looks like things may or may not be going your way. And if there ends up being a bidding war in front of the court, they'll do exactly that. They'll adjourn the matter, and they'll direct that sealed bids get sent to the law firm by a certain deadline. And then there's a next appearance for approval of the highest bidder, so to speak. And so patience is key to the process, particularly now. It can take a long time for these matters to get heard again before the court. And so patience, again, is very important. It's important as well, again, I alluded to the paralegal before, if you need information, if you need contact with other realtors, going through the paralegal is going to be key to that process to trying to get information. And there's ultimately nothing preventing you from pulling the court record for any particular action. There may be a bit of delay in doing that, but if you need access to any documents, all documents filed with the court are a matter of public record. So that's something you are able to obtain, and it's something to keep in mind. Now, if there are other types of foreclosures that don't actually go through this process, and those are when it's a short sale. So it's usually an insured mortgage situation where the lender or the mortgagor, the value of the property is significantly less than what is owing on the mortgage. And so what happens then is the lender actually purchases the property from the mortgagor. There's a deficiency that's dealt with through a court order. But then you find that the lenders are now listing the properties. So there's actually an opportunity after a judicial listing or outside of a judicial listing where you're actually physically buying the property back from the inventory owned by the bank. Now, that is another opportunity that you don't have to wait for a court process, because once the lender owns the property, they own the property, they can accept any offers. There's still bidding wars through that process. But the thing to keep in mind, and the one caution in that process, is that once lenders own properties, when they are signing purchase contracts, they're going to cross out literally almost every representation and warranty on that schedule. And so you are literally buying it as is, whereas there may be some additional warnings for properties that have had some water damage, or if there have been some pipes that have burst through the process, that type of thing. So it's very important that you read and you're willing to enter into that type of thing before you consider that type of purchase. So other than that, I mean, I think that's, unless you guys have questions, that's kind of a really quick and dirty over the foreclosure process. So if you guys have any questions, you can let me know. Again, Danielle Bourgeois with Field Law, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today.
Thanks very much, Danielle. Can you still hear me, Danielle?
Yes, I can.
So one of the things I was wondering about, and sorry, is why is it that sometimes the foreclosure will have unconditional offers only, and then other times they will allow conditions?
Well, sometimes I think conditional offers will get placed before the court because oftentimes, like the waiver deadline for the conditions, like whether it's an inspection, it might be 2 weeks. And so the lawyer controlling the foreclosure will know that this won't be back before the court. Like it's usually a 90-day listing. So if you're putting conditions on, 2 weeks, into the listing. Well, the listing still has to run for 3 months. And so you can go ahead and put that offer in, but until you waive those conditions, it's likely not going to get accepted by a court. So it just kind of depends on the timing through the process, because like I said, it's a 90-day listing usually.
That's great, Danielle. Well, thank you very much. That was extremely informative, and I'm sure that was very, very helpful for everybody. And again, Danielle is with Field Law. And so if anybody does have any other questions, they can reach out to the Mogul Group and we can pass those questions on to Danielle and get an answer to you. Or you can certainly reach out to Danielle directly at Field Law. I'm sure she'll be more than able to help you out. So we just a quick reminder that again, one of the cornerstones of Mogul Mastermind is networking. So we do have a networking break coming up. We are going to be, Jen, we're going to be going back into the breakout rooms. I know. Yeah. I'm pre-selling here. No, we've got the networking break coming up, but first, so I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. But first off, we're pretty sure that pretty much a definite majority of people that are dialed in tonight are dialed into these next two presenters. We're going to learn about the Smith maneuver. And we've got two great people to talk about. We first off have our power team member, Keaton Kirkwood from the KB Mortgage team. They are investor-focused mortgage brokers. And along with him is the creator of the Smith maneuver, Rob Smith from the Smith Consulting Group. So gentlemen, welcome and take it away.